Oh, yeah! You know what time it is. That's right, it's time for the Eddie and Webby podcast! Yo, I'ma bust out some theme song action for you. Check it out. The Eddie and Webby show is the place to be. They're talking about beer and pickleball and technology. So if you didn't know, now you know. 'Cause it's time for the Eddie and Webby show.
On today's episode, Eddie and Webby binge watch Tiger King. This is the Eddie and Webby podcast.
All right, and cut. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Oh, hey, how's it going? This is Webby, not Eddie.
And I'm Eddie, and this is our 66 podcast.
Oh, yeah, episode number 66. We took a few weeks off, but we're back in action, and we've got an awesome show in store for you guys today, and we're pretty excited about it. We hope you enjoy it.
We are very excited about it. And guess what? We're live. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitch. And we're live on YouTube. And this is meant to be interactive. So if you have any questions or comments for our guest tonight or for us, please go ahead and throw them in there, and we'll definitely be getting to those, right, Webby?
Yes, sir, that is correct. That is absolutely correct.
Well, before we bring our guest on here, I know that I really want to know, and I'm sure you guys do as well, Webby, what's going on in Twitter?
Ah, yes, Twitter. Good old Twitter. Let me pull it up here on my phone, see what's going on the Twitter sphere. Here is a message on Twitter from Dwayne Wayne Johnson. He says, Eddie and Webby, it was very cool learning about Adam Stone's past as a professional poker player and how he implements part of the mental side while playing pickleball. Nice. Thank you, Dwayne. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, that was cool. It was nice to see that Adam Stone on our last podcast got a chance to talk about his experience on the World Poker Tour as well as a pickleball player. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was very cool to hear. Let's do another comment here on Twitter. Here's one from Dink Van Dyke. They say, how did Eddie and Webby con their way into being workout instructors for the Pickleballist COVID-19 Day Fitness Challenge? Nobody wants fitness advice from a couple of nobodies. Jeez. Ouch. Come on.
We tried hard, man. We really tried.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel like this Dink Van Dyke person comments all the time, and it's never good. Like, why do you care about what we're doing these days, dude?
Knock it off, Dink.
Right? But we appreciate all feedback, so thank you for that. Let's do one more comment here on Twitter. Here's one from Vin Smickman. Eddie and Webby, your vlog series on YouTube about your experience at the Florida Grand Slam tournament has been great. I am excited to see the next episode. Awesome. Thank you very much, Vin. And yeah, that was an awesome time. That was definitely one of the most fun tournaments I've been a part of so far, and I'm glad that I was able to join Eddie down in Florida for it.
I got to tell you, Webby, I love all the videos that we do for our channel, but that vlog video of the Florida Grand Slam, I think, is probably one of the best that we have on the channel. So if you guys haven't checked it out, definitely do it because it's solid.
Yeah, I definitely had the most fun taking part in shooting it and putting it together of any of the vlogs we've done so far. And we've done a lot of fun vlog videos, but yeah, I got to admit that was by far my favorite one to work on so far. I even climbed up on the roof to get some footage, if you can believe that. And I hate heights. So if you want to see some very scary footage that I shot, then check that one out. Not going to lie. It was very scary climbing up on that roof.
Yeah, I can imagine that was a little freaky up there.
Yeah, a little bit. But actually, one thing I'm excited about is getting to our guest. But before we do that, I'm a little bit thirsty. I got to wet my palate. I don't know about you. Do you have anything you're going to be sipping on tonight, Eddie?
You know, I do. And actually, as you know, I like to explore in all different kinds of alcohols out there. And I was really curious about this one because I'm a big kombucha fan. I love my probiotics. I think that kombucha is really good and healthy. But I've never heard of a hard kombucha until I was at Publix the other day. And here is a black cherry hard kombucha by Flying Embers. And so I'm really excited to be able to try this out tonight.
Oh, very nice. That
Yeah.
sounds pretty good.
What are you going to be drinking?
Well, I will be drinking something. I don't know if it's brand new. It's definitely new to me. And it's from Founders, one of my favorite breweries. And this is called Four Giants IPA. And man, I am loving this thing. And let me read you the description real quick here. It says, we've made a lot of Imperial IPAs over the years, and in turn, have had a lot of arguments over which one is the absolute best. So to settle this once and for all, our brewers mashed up 4 of our favorite recipes into the ultimate Imperial IPA. Four Giants boasts aggressive bitterness balanced by a malty, sweet backbone, while huge aromatics come courtesy of the 7 American hop varieties. And that was probably the longest beer description I've ever read in my life, but it sounds great and it tastes great, and I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites currently by far.
Very nice. I like it.
Well, anything else you think we should do during the show today?
Nope, I think that's it, guys. I guess we'll see you later.
All right, that's a wrap. Oh no, wait a second. We actually have a very interesting guest that we want to get to. I think now might be a great time for that. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Man, I am very excited to talk to today's guest. He is responsible for some of the highest quality pickleball video content in existence. And as far as I know, he's also responsible for the first broadcast quality coverage of pickleball tournaments. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the executive producer and creator of Pickleball Channel, Rusty Howes. How's it going, Rusty?
It's going well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this is definitely a huge honor for me. I've been a big fan of Pickleball Channel pretty much ever since I started playing pickleball, because I feel like one of the first videos I stumbled upon when doing a YouTube search for pickleball ended up being one of the Pickleball Channel videos. And yeah, I've got to tell you, it's definitely an honor having you here today.
Well, I really appreciate it. I mean, it's interesting to hear things like that. I think, you have hopes when you start something, and then when it sort of goes beyond what your hopes are, it's always like pleasure. So it's still a little bit weird when someone's like, "Oh, this was great," or "I remember seeing that," or "So thank you for your appreciation." And that's kind of really why we do it. But it's also a little bit weird to hear people saying like, "I saw this" or "I saw that." But we have fun, and we're trying to help people around the world with the sport, really.
Very nice. Yeah, to be honest, it was a huge breath of fresh air when I first came across Pickleball Channel, because there was a lot of very low quality videos I was finding on YouTube, and I feel like pickleball it wasn't really getting what it deserved as far as exposure and stuff like that. So when I found the high quality videos that you guys were doing, I was like, oh, thank you. Finally, somebody is doing some like really good high quality stuff. And this was like a few years ago when I first got into pickleball. I mean, I know a lot of people are starting to get more into it now, but back then,
for sure,
definitely there wasn't much. So yeah, I definitely thank you for all the work that you've put into the high quality content out there.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for saying that. But it's interesting, like definitely the exciting thing is I think the quality has risen across the board, and some of it's technology, but also as the sport grows, people become a little bit more serious about it. I mean, it's interesting when you say that. We've always been kind of passionate about doing high quality stuff, and I don't want to go too long on this, but part of our genesis story was, what's the bar that we want to set? And some of my team, actually a lot of us come from Hollywood, and some are more passionate about quality than others. And we even talked to people in the sport before we were launching, we were doing research. And I think the expectation even of pickleball players themselves was less than what we set. We're like, we wanted to treat the sport as to where the sport could and should be, not to where the sport was. I don't know if that makes sense, right? So we elevated the quality. We brought all of our experience from the entertainment industry and said, let's try to make this on our limited budget, because we didn't have the budgets we used to have in Hollywood. But let's make it as good as possible. Let's treat it as if it was broadcast, as if it was, and elevate the belief and the legitimacy of the sport through the media so that people can be proud of it. The players would see something they were proud of, like, holy cow, I didn't think pickleball could look this cool or this good, versus like, oh, just some little mom and pop recreational thing. And of course, now the whole industry's blown up.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Now, for the last couple episodes of the podcast, we didn't ask our guests about pickleball right away, and we almost had our pickleball podcast license revoked. So the first thing I really need to dive into right now, or one of the first things anyway, is how did you first get into pickleball?
Okay, so how did I get into pickleball? There's sort of the long and short. It depends on how long's the podcast, because I could do the hour-long version of just this question.
Tell us everything. Tell us everything.
Well, we owe it to the Huntsman World Senior Games, big picture, but specifically someone named Don Odell. So Don was responsible for getting pickleball into the Huntsman World Senior Games. For people who don't know, the Huntsman World Senior Games, when we started, was, it was the biggest tournament in pickleball. And then you sort of had Huntsman and Nationals. Those were sort of neck and neck, the biggest. And at the time, it's like Huntsman would hit 600 people and everybody like, wow, that's a big tournament. But we weren't there for pickleball. I was doing our sponsor, if people don't know who our sponsor, Highlands Leg Cramps, and I've been working with them on other things. And they were exploring active boomer and senior athletes. So the Huntsman World Senior Games is like the Senior Olympics. They had 11,000 athletes, which is the same as athletes in the London Olympics. So swimming, cycling, everything. One of my filmmakers, I wasn't there, one of my filmmakers called up and said, hey, everything's going well. I have these cool little vignettes about people being active and vibrant, like little mini documentaries, right? And this volleyball player and this other person. Only problem is I got one, I don't know how to finish it. I don't know what to do. The guy says on camera, pickleball saved my life. Do you know what pickleball is? And I was like, I don't know what pickleball is. So we had to call up the heads of the Huntsman Games and be like, hey, can we figure out what this is? So that was the very, very beginning. And we started to learn about this amazing community. And that sort of first opened our eyes up to it. And then we went back the next year, learned more about the people, learned more about the community, and realized what a special opportunity there was for providing content to this great community. And hopefully the community, something that they could embrace and help them celebrate and learn or whatever. And so that was the very beginning of it.
Very nice.
I started out, I guess I didn't start out as a player. I started out as a producer. And, before I actually ever owned a paddle. So I think I was making videos on Pickleball Channel and technically didn't even own my own paddle.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. I thought for sure like you got hooked on it like all of us did. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to start a video production company to focus on pickleball.
Exactly. Yeah, no. So we had our company. We were making other media. And then there was an opportunity to capture and tell a story. Yeah. My first paddle I bought, I think at the SoCal Classic, it was less than a year, but it was an aluminum pickleball champion paddle. And I bought it from Beverly and Bob Youngren.
Nice.
So that's how it all started in terms of my playability. I've still never done a tournament. I've never played in a tournament or a round robin or anything. I play.
Oh, wow.
But all the event, I'm always working at any event that I go to.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how that would be the case because I know Eddie and I, ever since we started doing more of the video production of tournaments and stuff, it definitely makes it hard for us to compete and try to do a high-level video production. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then people are like, Rusty's always running around on stuff.
Nice. So how long have you been doing video production work? Like when did you first get into that?
Well, my background's actually clinical psychology and social work stuff. My wife was the entertainment person. We've lived in Los Angeles, but I sort of transitioned, which is a long story. In 95 or 96 was when I sort of got involved in the entertainment industry. And then our production company around 2001 is when we kind of formed our company. So it's been a little while now. My daughter is 21, so, our company's at least 21 years old, if that makes sense, but then started working in the late 90s in the entertainment industry.
Okay. Now, is it something that you went to school for, or is it something that you just kind of had a knack for and just kind of, that just kind of, you got sucked into it, or?
So my wife, Meredith, who a few people have met, she's really like the best thing about our company, our business. Without her, Pickleball Channel wouldn't exist at all. I'm just a spaz and I run around. So everything that I know as it relates to the entertainment industry was on the job. So my very, very, very first job was as a temporary employee working in human resources actually a temporary employee at Disney Animation. But I'm decent with computers and I'm a hard worker and I like to learn. So you learn this and you learn that. And then I started working in more entertainment, and you learn about animation and live production. And so I was more of the operations person, not a camera operator. And even now I can edit and I can shoot, but my team are much more talented at actually shooting and editing. But it's 20 some years of on the job training, basically. I didn't actually go to school for any of it.
Okay.
So, which is why if someone's gonna get a degree, you can't really skip school and be a heart surgeon or skip school and be a lawyer. But, as far as creative stuff, the stuff of what we're doing, you can learn, between YouTube and everywhere else. YouTube didn't even exist when I was learning. I'm an old man. I'm gray hair.
Yeah, I can't even imagine if YouTube was around when I was in high school, because it didn't really come out till I was more college age or maybe even slightly after. So if YouTube was around when I was in high school, I mean, who knows what kind of crazy stuff I would have been doing as far as video content and stuff like that. In some ways, I'm kind of glad it wasn't out quite yet, because the stupid things I probably would have put out there probably wouldn't have been great when I was that young. But
there you go. Right.
So you mentioned briefly a little bit about Disney. If I understand correctly, not only did you used to work for Disney, but you've also worked for Warner Brothers. Is that true?
Yeah. So my sort of Hollywood places was Disney, Warner Brothers, and DreamWorks. Sort of. I was a company that we had a production deal with DreamWorks. So my wife's been sort of TV, ABC, and Fox, and so between the two of us, I think we've hit all the major studios. Actually, maybe we never worked for Sony. No, she never worked for Sony. But so yeah, I was in animation, and so Disney a little bit, and then Warner Brothers the longest, and then worked on a live action TNT film with my wife, and then went back to Warner Brothers, and then DreamWorks, and so she did a lot more live action TV stuff. So I have animation live action sort of background as a sort of production management operations person. And she was episodic television and cable movies and stuff like that.
All
so
right.
yeah,
nice.
It's fun.
Nice.
It's my the bottom of my Iron Giant poster. So if you've ever seen Iron Giant, it's sort of
love that movie.
It was Brad Bird directed The Incredibles. People know that, but this was sort of his kind of first feature before that. And technically, at the very end, there's a production technology credit. I'm a nobody at the end of Iron Giant.
But your name is there? Like if you stay till the very end of the credits, you might see your name?
I think it might say systems operator or tape operator. I was just talking about IT stuff with Eddie earlier. I can't remember my exact title, but something like that. Systems operator, tape operator.
Nice.
In the production technology.
Very nice.
So
after I graduated high school, I went to school for broadcasting, and I focused mainly on television broadcasting. And it is crazy how much the industry has changed in the last 20 years, especially because when I first got into it, when I first started learning video editing, it was still tape to tape editing. So like I would get creative at home, and I would hook up 2 VHS players and try to edit things together with those. And it had like the squiggle lines in between each shot because that was a horrible way to do things. And it's crazy because like when my first like paying gig in the video production world, it was this giant room that was the production suite, like the edit suite. And now I can do way more than I ever could back then just with this one MacBook Pro than I could with this whole room full of equipment. So I'm sure you've seen major changes in the industry on your end.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it in terms of Hollywood or talk about it in terms of pickleball, but the reality is that technology change is the only reason that Pickleball Channel can do what it does, or anybody, you guys, right? So the change in the technology and even what you can do with iPhones, for crying out loud, has allowed people to create content in the industry of pickleball, an industry that has grown a lot, but still is tiny compared to traditional media. And if this technology didn't exist, then we wouldn't be allowed to spread things like all around the world. There's 90 some countries. I don't know the numbers, but there's like 96 countries in the world or 100 countries in the world. And out of them, I think 92 or something have watched Pickleball Channel, which blows my mind. And the technology is the only reason, between the acquisition technology, the cameras, and then the computers, and then the Facebooks and YouTubes. So it's really sort of exciting for pickleball to be able to grow and have a community that's global only because of the technology, really. And the people, of course. You have to have great people, but you know what I'm saying.
Right, for sure. Oh, yeah. Yep, definitely. So something that we started doing not too long ago was a very fun new segment that we like to call Pros Asking Pros Questions. And that's where pro pickleball players ask other pro pickleball players questions. And now, just because you aren't technically a pro pickleball player,
I like to say I'm a negative 2.0.
So
you
may not be
zero.
Nice. So you may not be a pro pickleball player, but in our eyes, you're definitely a true professional in the world of pickleball. So right now, we are proud to bring you what we like to call today's hottest new segment in all of pickleball, and that is Pros Asking Pros Questions.
All right.
That's right. We got quite a few here for you. I'm really excited for it. And the first one I'm going to play here is actually from Melissa McCurley.
Hey, Rusty. You and I go back about 6 years now. And through those 6 years, I have admired your focus, your commitment, and your dedication, and your passion for the game of pickleball. And I couldn't have been more proud when you and your team won the Impact Award at the US Open last year. So my first question is, what fuels that drive, that focus, that passion that you have for pickleball? And my second question is, when you're not on camera, why do you look so mean? Bye, Rusty.
Okay. So now, I don't know if she told you the whole mean thing. It's sort of an inside joke. I can get kind of intense. The irony is I'm the youngest of three boys. I was the clown, the goofball. Even around my family, I'm constantly embarrassing my kids. But I do, I guess, put on a more serious face when I'm working, right? It's game time or whatever. And I try to be professional. So for whatever reason, I guess I was always focused and intense. And when you have a small team, like, we have tried to do, when we had the truck at the US Open, we had basically a team of 12 to 15 people. But in the first part of the week, this year actually was going to be the first year that any tournament at the US Open, we had it lined up. We were going to invest more money than anybody. We were going to have a full production team with a full truck for the entire tournament. It would have been the first time in history that many professionals had covered it. Now, someone could say it wasn't that good, but point being is, in previous years, the beginning of the week, we got like 4 or 5 people trying to do the job of 15. That's like when you guys try to do a stream yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm always running around real intense. And so one time Melissa's mom is just like, oh yeah, Rusty's not that nice. He's not that mean or whatever. So I had to take we made a joke and I made some grumpy pictures, or I sent off like a really goofy video to her. And so that's sort of the inside joke, that I'm just this really grumpy bastard all the time. That's what she meant. But so when I'm not doing pickleball, I tend to actually be a bit more of a goofball and whatever. So to answer her question about the sort of the passion, I think part of it is I just sort of dive into whatever I get into. My wife, who's my partner, Meredith, and so shout out to Meredith, who's the best person in the world. And if anybody bumps into her, if it wasn't for her, Pickleball Channel wouldn't exist. But on top of that, I go along and I can sort of get distracted and I just dive into stuff, right? So I can shut down other things. And she made a joke. She's like, you could go to a grass growers convention, and at the end of the grass growers convention, you'd be asking questions and doing things, and people are like, wow, you're really passionate about grass growing, aren't you? And I guess part of me, I love helping people. So I fell in love with the pickleball community, and I became committed to do what I thought was best for pickleball, not just what was best for me or even what was best for Highlands. So it was amazing that Highlands is the parent company, Highlands Leg Cramps is the product. They gave us the freedom to grow this for pickleball, not just for promotion, if that makes sense. It's a fine line. It has to be good. It has to be worthwhile. But I fell in love with the people, and then I'm like, okay, you go to these tournaments, and I almost cried watching Melissa's thing, and I cried when we won the award at the US Open. You've been to tournaments, you have these volunteers in their 70s, some of them are in the 80s, and they get there at 6 a.m. and they work into the end, and I'm thinking, there is no way that I cannot give as much of myself that they're giving. So I think the inspiration of the volunteers, the inspiration of the people who brought pickleball to where it is, it's everybody who just did free clinic after free clinic after free. They just poured their lives into this, thousands and thousands of hours. And so that kind of inspires me to try to do the same thing. And maybe that, partly I'm high energy. I talk fast. I walk fast. I'm from the Northeast. But I think if it wasn't for the people, I would have given up a long time ago. So I love you, pickleball people.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, I think you've touched on kind of the spirit of pickleball as a sport, and obviously, we all have a passion for it. That's why we do what we do. So it's really cool to kind of hear your story and what drives you to keep that going.
Yeah, for sure.
Before I get on to the next video question, I do want to
right.
I want to put a couple questions in here from social media. And this one comes from our friend Carl Schmitz from Pro Pickleball. And he says, Rusty, thank you for what you've done for the sport. Couple of questions. Question number one here. From a media perspective, what changes in the game have you seen since you got into the sport? And how is that driving audiences? Audiences content expectations today?
Well, I would say, first of all, shout out to Carl as well, because he's one of the contributors, and there's things whatever. We can talk about how the sport's growing, and you can't cover everything, so it's exciting to have lots of different coverage. But definitely, I think I've seen the game play change, but from a practical media standpoint, we tried to elevate it. So the first match we covered was from the Grand Canyon State Games, maybe in 2015. And I was hesitant. GoPros, I use GoPros sometimes. I've used them. I've strapped them to the back of NASCARs. But I didn't necessarily want to make a bunch of GoPro-only stuff. Some people can't tell the difference, but I think you guys get it. So higher-end broadcast cameras, it has a different look. And I knew I didn't just want to have one camera at the baseline. I wanted to have multi-camera coverage, but on a limited budget with the wrong tools. And even the tools you guys are using have evolved over the last few years. So we did, I think, a 3-camera shoot. So I think the media, we've always been trying to push more coverage, professional angles, the right angles. So I definitely have seen that change. And in particular, the US Open was the first venue that we went to that had enough space to shoot properly. I've even talked to people who are building facilities, and I say, are you guys planning on having media? Because if you're like any other sport, whether it's tennis or whether it's football, you have to plan on media camera access. And a typical tennis court conversion, boom, here's your tennis court. There's fences on every side. Where do the cameras go? Can I cut a hole in the fence? So we've seen, I think the production value has increased as venues have, some fences are lower. You have more pickleball courts built from scratch that don't have 15 high-foot fence walls, if you know what I'm saying. And even just the difference between an iPhone 4 and an iPhone 10. So if someone brings up an iPhone 10 or 11 and streams, that camera is going to look better. So I think production quality has increased. And so therefore, I think also audiences, so quality's increased. And so I think audiences want more. But I think the other thing is the volumes has increased. So then there's almost a saturation too. So there's this delicate dance in terms of how much you put out and what you put out, because you don't want to inundate with the wrong thing if you're trying to build appetite, if that makes sense a little bit. So I think the technology has allowed more and more people to see stuff. And there's certainly some people who want everything for free now. So Facebook, YouTube, hey, give me more for free now. Give me more for free now. We started to talk about that. And functionally, if everything's for free all the time everywhere, then businesses can't support it and pros can't make money and tournaments can't money. So it's an interesting dialogue. But some people, I think, get it. It's funny. We get hate mail sometimes and we get love mail in the same message. One person's like, how come this isn't this way? And another person's like, well, how could they pay for it then? Stuff like that. But it's exciting. I think multi-camera, higher quality production is more and more accessible than ever. And I think audiences, I believe, that's what we're committed to. Hopefully they want it. We've made a big mistake if they don't want it. We can save ourselves a bunch of money and get GoPro Hero 3s out.
Yeah.
So it's like what you guys are doing, right? The tools that you guys use, you do amazing stuff, and you can do more and more. The gap between $100,000 budget and what it experientially looks like, people can use lower end tools, and we've done it, right? So I have yet to do a Hollywood budget yet, but we try to push it as far as possible so the average person feels like, oh, this could be on ESPN or CBS Sports or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing you were talking about how like some people get it and some people not so much as far as what goes into these live productions and stuff like that. I know when Eddie and I were live streaming at the Florida Grand Slam not too long ago, there was a couple people that were like, "Hey, can you move your setup over to court number 3 and get some stuff over there?" Right. And we're like, No, I don't think we can move this giant table full of equipment over to that table very easily."
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the unique things about pickleball, right? You know, you have like US Open was going to have 50, I think just the numbers of courts keeps growing, right? Mm-hmm. And even in things like the Olympics, I always try to say, and this is an excuse, I guess, but it's an excuse based upon strategy and professional experience. The Olympics has a much bigger budget than we do. I mean, I think everybody, you know, that's sort of a joke, but you know, millions and millions of dollars, and even the Olympics doesn't cover every single thing. Right. So media outlets and venues themselves have to make that tough decision, and there's always going to be something that's missed. Or I remember one year a bronze match that we covered ended up being far more entertaining and a better match than a pro match. But you know, you're not a fortune teller, so okay, where can we set up and what do we do? And one of the drawbacks of the US Open the last couple of years for us, the bigger we get on championship court, the less we get to run around during the day. In our first couple of years, we were able to pop over here or there. I got some great action from a match with, I think it was Matt Wright's first year. So it was Matt Wright was playing with Jack Oxler against Wes Gabrielson and Daniel Moore, maybe. And it was just on a random small side court. It wasn't even a finals match. It was somewhere in the bracket, or maybe it was like a semi or a pre-semi. But we were able to pop over, and I climbed on a ladder with one camera, and then I was like, hey, and I got another guy, and it wasn't live, but we were able to capture it. So there's pros and cons, I think, to everything. But live definitely limits things, if that makes sense. But then, of course, it opens up other things.
Yeah, it's a give and take. It's kind of the decision we had to make with when we started to go live with our podcast, was we knew we were going to give up on maybe some certain quality things, but we knew that our post-production was going to be a huge time saver. It's much more time spent up front. Yeah. And a little bit more stressful of an execution, but a huge time saver in the end as well.
Yeah. Well, and we try to actually do a hybrid, right? So if a lot of people notice you'll do something live and then we ISO our cameras, and then sometimes we'll do a cleanup, or we might have a fifth camera running and had a couple slow-mo moments. So like there's a shot that we've used multiple times of Kyle Yates jumping in the air and super slow-mo jumping and hitting a ball. And you know, that wouldn't have been captured live. And pickleball is so fast. A lot of people are like, give me more instant replay, give me instant replay. And you're like, it's not feasible because you're on to the next point. So you either have to say, I'm going to skip a point and show a really cool instant replay, or I have to wait until there's a big enough gap. But the shot of Kyle wasn't live, but then later on we did another edit of the match and we were able to bring in like an additional camera angle. So my dream is to like have like 10 cameras simultaneous recording all the time and play like crazy with matches. So we'll see how that looks. Maybe if I come to Florida, I'll be like, hey guys, I need 2 more shooters.
Let's go.
There we go.
We have similar dreams, Rusty. I think that'd be a blast as well. Great questions, Carl. We actually have a couple more here from Carl that I'm hoping we can get to real quick with Pro Pickleball. Question number 2, what trends in technology do you see that may help reach more viewers? Why don't we answer that and we'll go on to number 3.
Well, I think that's sort of similar to sort of what I was saying, and even what we said at the beginning, Facebook, YouTube, even those platforms themselves are becoming more aggressive about how they get content. So when we started, Facebook was barely doing video. Mm-hmm. We did a test at a tournament in Oregon, and we uploaded a raw clip of, I think, Sarah Ansbury. Facebook had decided we need to beat YouTube on video. So anytime anybody uploaded a video, whether it was good or bad, Facebook would promote it. So platforms like YouTube, Facebook, whatever, definitely make things more accessible. In terms of trends, I think the fact that you have increased horsepower in your devices. So like I said, an iPhone 10, longer battery life, things like that, even the GoPros and stuff. What was that? Sorry, I just got interrupted. Someone on the side making a face. So I think cameras becoming cheaper. this isn't a tech trend, but even like what we're doing, right? So I think because we exist at some level, it shows somebody else like, hey, maybe I'll try something, right? So the more people are trying things, gives other people maybe like, hey, maybe that's possible. And then you have someone on YouTube, and it might be a nature video, but they're like, here's how you use this camera for nature. And then they realize, oh, that's not as hard as I thought. I'll just put this here. So cheaper cameras, stronger cameras, faster internet. So that would definitely be a big obstacle to live is connection. But his question technically doesn't talk about live. We reach, we have 11.5 million views on our channel. A lot of that's not live, which sort of, blows my mind, right? And then how important, sorry, do you want me to just jump to number 3?
Yeah. So number 3 is, how important is content copyright to you and to the industry?
Well, I think, copyright is a very interesting, weird sort of thing in general. But it's important. I think from an industry standpoint and from us standpoint, like we have people steal our stuff all the time. And if it's just Joe Schmo being recreational, then that's one thing. But there's like businesses that are making money. And so I've been in the industry for a while. So if I'm making a car commercial and I need to get a cool aerial shot of downtown Los Angeles, I have to pay money for that aerial shot because somebody else spent money. So for me, it's kind of important. Like if everybody steals our stuff and makes things, I'm burning through money, so our company is burning through money to try to kind of do as good as possible. And then if someone, it's just like anything else. So I think copyright's important for everything. It's hard in 2019, YouTube and all these places, people steal stuff all the time. They don't think it's stealing, but functionally they are, right? So, which is why music companies, like one of our years at the US Open, there was live, the Rolling Stones was in the background during a break. So there's robots. People don't realize they're not literally robots, but software is constantly analyzing the data. And like Shazam can recognize, oh, that's a Rolling Stones clip. This person doesn't have authority to use a Michael Jackson or Rolling Stones. And then, so they pulled down our feed and stuff. We've even had, so that's a short version. I think it's important because I think people have to be valued for the work they do. If they can't generate revenue off of what they do, if they build a house and someone takes the house for free instead of buys the house, it's hard for the guy to keep building houses, right? So to the industry, you have to have a way that people can recreationally, like CrossFit does some stuff to say, hey, you can share stuff and do things. We encourage it, but it's for individuals, not businesses. The challenge with pickleball is, how do you define business? So the local guy who's a coach, who's a full-time pickleball coach, who's not a media person, but they're creating content to promote their business, then that's a business, right? Because they're generating revenue off of whatever. Betsy, who's saying, hey, check it out to her friends and family, what's happening, is a different sort of thing. So you sort of have to kind of navigate that at some level. But I think
definitely it's a gray area, kind of a sticky situation in certain times, but I agree. We have to, at some point, we have to be able to, without copyright, there's no boundaries. There's no way to really have any sort of sense of, this is my work, this is my accomplishment. Then it just becomes 100% public domain.
Yeah, and it's hard because we've chosen not to do, now in pickleball, they're starting to become paid versions of content, right? And so all of our content's free and accessible right now. So if somebody gets something for free and they didn't pay to get it, then they sort of assume that it's just free, right? But it's Taylor Swift and it's everybody else. It's anybody who ever makes something who's trying to make a living of it somehow has to figure out that you have to get revenue for the thing you made. So if I have to pay $700 for a clip of a flag in Spain for a thing I'm doing. So we've done that. International pickleball. We talked about how pickleball is growing internationally. We did a story about the first IFP. So I paid money for footage from Madrid to put into my news piece. Other people might have stolen it, but I paid for it. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It happens. All right. So we have a lot of other video questions still that I want to be able to get to. This next one actually comes from the one and only Rob Davidson.
It's Rob Davidson here in St. George. Hope you guys are doing well. My first question for Rusty is, when are you going to be in St. George next? We're going to be holding the Pickleball Legacy Scholarship Foundation Tournament in October, right after the Huntsman. We had a little bit of reschedule, but now we're good for in October. So think about coming out and checking it out. My second question is, Rusty is a professional videographer, has done a lot for pickleball, but I'm curious about what his proud work is outside of pickleball. So if you can tell me a little bit about your non-pickleball project that you're proud of, that would be good.
So to answer his hi, Rob, thank you. We were very fortunate to be able to work with Rob recently. So his first we did a quick tip with him. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty good on our channel when we were down at Bobby Riggs with Steve Dawson. So thanks for that, Rob. St. George. I love St. George. That's where Huntsman was. So that's sort of near and dear to us because it's where I found pickleball, right? And the Little Valley Complex is one of my favorite because it's really spread out. It's really nice. So Rob, I don't know the answer, but I was actually just talking to Wayne, who's from Parks and Rec in St. George, about trying to figure out when to come out. Utah has opened up earlier than I'm in Los Angeles. We still have to wear face masks every time we go out. So I've actually joked about heading to Utah so that I could maybe shoot a little bit. So it might be earlier than you think. In terms of what am I proud about outside of pickleball? Well, just life. I'm proud of my family, my kids, so that's everything. I'm amazed at how amazing my daughters are, given what an idiot that I am. So that's my wife again. I already said my wife's great, right? So she makes up for me. So in terms of creatively, oh my gosh. I mean, so just recently I'm working on some footage from a Tour de France commercial. So our production company still, I'm not 100% full-time pickleball. So we still make commercials and other things. And we made a cycling commercial for Highlands, which is pretty cool. And I'm actually working on a revisit of that right now. So that's cool. I'm trying to think. The one that's sort of the sexiest, which is not that fancy, is we did the, when you watch a movie, at the end, the production companies have animated logos. So we created the animated logo for the Kennedy Marshall Company, which aired for the first time at the end of Bourne Supremacy, one of the Bourne Identity films. So that was kind of cool. You see your stuff up on the big screen in a movie theater. So that's kind of fun, I'd say.
Yeah.
But there's some of the nonprofit stuff I've done probably is also, it's not that fancy, but I know it touched lives. So that's a different kind of thing.
That's really cool, man.
How's that
I think to have something that you were involved in show up at the end of the movie, in addition to having a movie where your name shows up at the end of it, that's pretty cool, man. That must have felt like, what was that experience like the first time you saw that in the theater?
It's cool. It's cool. I mean, so when you're in the thick of it, right? So Kennedy Marshall, we were not at the studio. I was through an ad agency. Iron Giant, I was like at Warner Brothers, right? So you're there every day. You're in that world. So it wasn't as surprising, if that makes sense, because you've been working on it for a couple of years, and then you go with all the other people. But it's cool because you watch the film and you're excited about this thing. Mm-hmm. Films have thousands of people involved in them, but at some level you're like, I remember that this computer crashed and we had to get it back up, or I remember that we had to move this data to that. Like, it would have been impossible to make without your role. So that's pretty cool. But we also have other fun Hollywood experiences that are, it's just, it's fun. The Hollywood thing's fun, but I would say I'm more proud of what I've done with Pickleball Channel. I don't want to say I'm more proud of what our team has done with Pickleball Channel than anything I did in the entertainment industry. But in terms of the world, if you say, I worked on this film with Warner Brothers, or I met Steven Spielberg, or whatever, that kind of stuff, everybody thinks, ooh, that's cool. And it has a wow factor, pickleball, what? But I'm extremely proud and humbled of what we've been able to accomplish so far with Pickleball Channel. It's and for a lot of my team, it's a highlight.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool, though. All right, we got a couple questions here from Jennifer Lucore and Alex Hamner. And I think you might have already answered this one, but I'm going to go ahead and play it anyway here for you.
Hey, Alex,
Well, I'm coming.
come here. Hey, Rusty from the Pickleball Channel's going to be on. And
Oh, nice.
We need to ask him a question.
Okay.
But before you say that, I want you all to know that the Pickleball Channel has been around since 2014. That's when we had the first media group, so that's a very long time.
That's a pretty cool bit of history right there.
Exactly. So, question, what do you think?
Well, so I have a question kind of like that. So you've been, Rusty, involved with pickleball since at least 2014, and so you've been to a lot of tournaments. But how many tournaments have you played in?
So yes, the answer is 0. I've played in 0 tournaments. I've played in 0 round robins. I joked about, it's like, so now that I'm over 50 and Alex and Jen are over 50, I think I joked recently with Jennifer saying, hey, do you want to like sandbag or something and like, play with me or something? That'd be a coup if I could get one of them as a mixed doubles partner. But I've tried to decide, like, do I go to SoCal Classic? Because that sort of was earlier in the career. Or do I go to Huntsman? I'm trying to figure out what's the first official thing I should play in, but it has to be something that I don't have to work.
Right.
Otherwise it'd be like, hey, we're about to go live. Hang on. I'm doing better than I thought. I have a lot of people like Steve Taylor worked with me a lot, and a lot of people know Steve, and Steve fell in love with pickleball and sort of be like, he'd say, well, he's like, I'm going to play sucky. I know I'm going to be 2 and out, so it won't be an issue. But, like, what if you have a good day? Sorry, we can't go live. Rusty might get a medal,
Yeah.
So.
The last tournament I was streaming, it was pro singles at Simone's tournament, Florida Grand Slam. And we had to hold up the start of our bracket because I was still on the air. We were still streaming some of the pro matches. They went longer than we expected, and we had to hold up the bracket like 45 minutes.
Nice enough to hold it for you.
Yeah, so I was very grateful that
instead of making
Chad
you
did
forfeit, you're like, yeah.
Right. But that's funny. Yeah, I could definitely see how it is tough to play and stream at the same time. It's definitely adds a challenge. Yeah. We actually have a second question here from Jennifer and Alex that I'm going to play now.
I've heard a rumor.
Rumor Studios.
That's the one.
Hey, Rusty. So Rumor Studios must be something besides pickleball.
I don't know why.
I know. So what does Rumor Studios do?
Okay. I love the two of them, right? That's always being a playful fair. Actually, one of my favorite, well, not favorite. Yeah, sure. One of my favorite. It's just silly. We did like a myth busting kitchen thing with Jennifer and Alex, and we were silly with it. So, and even the ultimate non-volley zone rule video, we got a little silly. So it's always fun working with them. Anyway, so Rumor Studios is the name of our production company. So the production company that runs or creates Pickleball Channel content is Rumor Studios. It's spelled Rumer. We founded the company when my wife was working on a movie for Fox. So it wasn't created to be an actual production company. It was just a legal entity at the time to get paid corporately from Fox. And you got to come up with a name. And a friend said, hey, how about Rumor, Rusty Meredith? My name's Rusty, her name's Meredith. We slapped them together. That became Rumor Studios. It actually ironically drives me crazy because everybody has a hard time spelling it, and I've wanted to change the name forever, but it's been 20 years now. So we our team obviously can make things like Pickleball Channel, but we do other commercials. We've worked with advertising agencies or corporations to do branded content and commercials and motion graphics and things like that, or the Kennedy Marshall. So Rumor Studios produced the animated logo for Kennedy Marshall Company. Kennedy Marshall is Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy now's with, whatever, it doesn't matter. You guys can look it up, IMDb.
That's cool, man. That's awesome that you guys are able to have that production company together. And I like the name. I think it's cool that you're able to combine both of those together. But I agree with you. I would have never known. I would have spelt it RUMOR.
RUMOR, exactly. So I'm like RUMER, whatever. So I'm just going to make it called, But is it Eddie with an IE or Eddie with a Y? So you have a spelling thing there too. Exactly.
You nailed it.
Or
That's
is it
the
Webby with IE?
Right. We run into that all the time too. So it happens. But that's cool, man. That's awesome that you guys have that and the work you've been able to do with Rumor Studios.
Yeah, so just creative media, mostly video, but we do motion graphics. We've done radio stuff as well. But if it moves around, then we can make it.
I like that. Is that your tagline?
No, actually, maybe I should change that. There you go. You heard it here first. If it moves around, we can probably make it.
We can probably make it. I like that. Oh man, well, we got plenty more questions from other people in the industry.
All right,
here.
awesome.
We got a couple here from our friend Steve Paranto.
Hi, Rusty. Hey, when I first met you in the Pickleball Channel, you guys were the only legit professional media source for the pickleball community. I'll never forget the time you guys came out to my backyard court and we filmed a couple segments, and you guys were there all day just to film a couple of 10-minute segments. Very professionally done. Well, nowadays, there's so many people that are out there putting pickleball content using just their phone because technology's changed. How are you in the Pickleball Channel separating yourself from those people?
All right, that's a good question. Am I back? I'm back. So first of all, thank you, Steve. It was an honor to meet you and meet your dad, and we're so glad, especially now that he's passed, that we were able to kind of tell your family story and tell his story. So thank you for that. And I mean, I think in terms of how are we separating ourselves, I think our goal is not so much how do we separate, but just how do we keep pushing forward. What we do isn't really rocket science. Like I've said, well, there's something in terms of how we do it. I like to think we are good instructors, that we really know how to break something down and show it well. Anybody can turn on a camera, so we try to differentiate with good use of the angles and the storytelling to try to make sure someone really learns something from it. Production value, definitely there's an element, like I think to answer Carl's question, more and more people are able to do things. And so we want to look at, how can we keep growing the sport? And so that potentially means going beyond what we started. I think now that we've proven ourselves, there's also opportunities to collaborate with other people. And we're looking at potentially having tiers of content, just like even, so you might have like a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And I've had some conversations with people that potentially might be able to cover things, and because not everything can have the same budget. But maybe there's opportunities where we get together with somebody and say, hey, let's broadcast this in the Pickleball Channel. We'll work with you to get this to here. So we're actually considering not so much separating, but maybe some interesting collaborations. But we will always try to push things forward. We will always try to do the best with what we have. Even 3 people can pick up an iPhone and one person shoots it and another person shoots it and the other one looks better. So we will always try to kind of make our quality as good as possible. But I would love it, as for the quality to just keep going up and up and up, So I think that's what's exciting for me, because, the downside is then people's expectations go up and it's harder to get away with it, to get away with something, But the upside is it elevates the sport. You have less and less low-end content that someone thinks like, oh, this is like low-end local intramural sports. This isn't really a real thing. But so it's exciting as that content goes up and gets quality. But I also would hope that some of the people, just because you can make it doesn't mean you should make it. And that's a very hard conversation to have with somebody.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation for sure.
Yeah, or just, also sustainability. I would say to do what you do, like you guys know, right? To keep doing it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. We have committed to creating a lot of content, and then that's more complicated. So that's part of it. I guess the endurance or the commitment is something that might distinguish us from some who kind of come and go.
Good stuff. Here is the second question from Steve.
In the future, I do believe that pickleball is going to be a popular televised viewer event for channels like ESPN. What do you see us do in the future to make us look really popular on TV? The players know it's fun and exciting, but how do you make that look even more fun and exciting on film? Hey, thanks, Rusty, and stay safe out there. Enjoy being on the Eddie and Webby show, and hope to see you on the court soon.
Well, thank you again, Steve. That's a tough one. I definitely think there's an element to where, in order for it to work on a they call it linear, right? So if you go into traditional TV, you have a fixed amount of time. Here's your slot. But the world as we know it is changing. Even this coronavirus thing's changing. So if the industry for several years continues with it's going to start at 7 o'clock and it's going to end at this time, then the industry will have to become media first in its planning and execution. What I mean is, in the beginning of what we did, we'd have to be like, hey, it's Pickleball Channel. You don't know who we are, but it's going to be good, I promise. Can we do this? And then you get to the point where you sort of say, okay, so, hey, guys, we're here. And then you get to the point where you tell the ref, like, you can't roll until we're back from commercial. So the sport and even some of the players in the early days, some of the players would get kind of pissy about it. I was even at a tournament where, like, we're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to cover this thing. And someone's like, oh, I got to, can we get going? And I'm like, no, like, do you want to be a professional athlete or do you want to be a recreational person so there's that dance. I think the sport, the players and the tournaments will have to be, and the pros in particular, will get more and more used to following the lead of the media's execution, if that makes sense. And there'll be a collaboration and a synthesis. And the smoother that gets, then the smoother the production becomes, which elevates it for the viewer. I think in terms of where we're at, I talked about additional cameras. Having multi-camera coverage, like we were the people who kind of invented this camera at the net. Tennis typically doesn't have that. And so I was like, if you have a 25 hit session at the net, you should switch your camera angle because it feels different. Now, some people hate it. So we're still learning, we're constantly collecting data at some level and feedback for what's the best way to do it. Some people say, I love the commentary. Some people say, I hate the commentary. Some people say, mute the commentary, it sucks. Some people say, you don't have to narrate. And so the sport is so young. We're still trying to figure out what the audience wants. And so conceptually answer Steve's question, a lot of people don't realize, I believe people have to consider sort of what they're doing with the audience and how that affects the industry, not just what they make. So we try to strategically look at those variables, and we believe that we are creating and developing an audience, not just showing an existing audience. Does that make sense? When we started, there was no audience because there was no content. So I have to figure out, how do I build the audience? And maybe I'm actually going to teach the audience what to expect. So am I drafting what the audience wants, or am I giving the audience what I think they want and that they fall in love with later? And there's that dance between what works. And then of course you have feasibility. So sometimes it's just like, sorry, I can't put the camera there because the first year at the US Open, terms like, okay, we got people sitting everywhere. And so I'm like, how am I going to get this shot? Someone paid $5,000 for this box. And I'd be like, excuse me. Right. I made friends with Steve. He's British, Stephen Cartwright. I can't remember. So I made friends with the guy who was in the box, and I was like, can I put my camera in your box? I'll try not to block your view. So we're negotiating. So I think part of that kind of plays into kind of how it'll work and how's it more entertaining to the masses. It's definitely gotten faster. So that helps. But at the end of the day, you have to grow fans. So we are trying to develop fan-based audiences in addition to participant-based audiences. Does that make sense? What I mean is, if you think about basketball and football, two guys in a bar will get in a fist fight over two football teams. And you ask them, did you play college ball? No. Do you currently regularly play football? No. And they're passionate as fans. Pickleball is still primarily a player-based audience. So to cross over to making, national media really excited, you have to sort of get people interested in what they're watching, whether or not they play it at some level. And part of that's how fast it moves, how you cut it. But there's a ton of people who hate golf and a ton of people who hate tennis and would never, ever watch it. So you have to grow. You have to keep growing the sport. You got to keep growing the sport, keep growing the recreational players. That's why what we do is multi-pronged approach as it relates to the industry. I don't know. A lot of people think, oh, Pickleball Channel just makes videos, but we're always thinking about how do we leverage. This goes back to copyright. If someone's going to use my copyright and promote the heck out of me and promote the heck out of the brands that I'm working with, whether it's Minto or Paddle Tech, that's awesome. I believe that we, more than almost anybody else in the industry, promote everybody else more than anybody else. Because I know that if Pickleball Channel isn't trying to help anybody who might be in my thing, whether they paid me or not, the industry is not going to go where it should go. If Eddie and Webby and us and everybody starts to think about how can I grow someone else's business or consulting or whatever, then the industry grows, the fans grow, they love you more, they watch you more, and then we're on bigger TV. All right. Anyway, that was yeah. I got on a little soapbox right there, so careful.
No, I love it. I think it's amazing. The one thing I wanted to also kind of follow that up with too is, Webby and I really have had experience in live streaming 2 fairly large tournaments in the last, let's say, 9 months. And we listened to a lot of the feedback that we got from the first tournament and really tried to apply it for the second tournament that we did when it came to commentary, angles, frequency of going to instant replay, what to do between matches, because a lot of these tournaments, it might be 2 minutes between a match. It might be 45 minutes, depending on what's going on with how the tournament is run. How much of that do you guys bring into what you do when it comes to really trying to listen to your audience? And how do you assemble that into a way that actually makes sense for you to kind of make some changes with?
Slowly and thoughtfully. So I think some people get frustrated with me sometimes because we don't move that fast. I guess it's kind of like if Pickleball Channel is going to jump into something, then we're going to do it really well. And at some level, the industry has sort of moved. It seemed to have perhaps moved faster than us in certain ways. But we want to make sure that we're really aware of who we listen to. Now, the slowly and thoughtfully is part of it, but I think with difficulty is the other answer, because we sort of know, especially with anonymity and the web, the most vocal voices aren't necessarily the majority. It's so-and-so who likes to complain. I laughed. And I've thought about doing mean tweets, actually Rusty's mean tweets, because there's plenty of people who hate us, right? Ironically, hey guys, if you're going to do mean tweets, get a little bit more poetic. Like if you watch Jimmy Kimmel's mean tweets, they're funnier. Our mean tweets are just kind of like flat, so, yeah. But, so you have some of those and you have to discern, like, do I listen to the complainers? I can't base everything on the complainers because typically the people who love it don't talk as much. So that's challenging. And so I guess, there's not an easy answer to your question. Definitely, sometimes you're just limited by the venue and you can't change. Again, which is what's so nice about the bigger venues. Now that there's bigger venues that are doing things, you can put cameras in places you didn't used to be able to. Yeah. But sometimes you're stuck, like the YMCA, where Simone's at, you only have so much space. Mm-hmm. And so then, what do you do there? The non-popular comment is the reality is the numbers in pickleball from immediate live views is still far less than any of our on-demand stuff. So what Pickleball Channel does on demand is far bigger. So I think Pickleball Channel holds the record for the largest simultaneous live stream, I think. But it's like, whatever, 1,800 or 2,000 at any one given point. Right. It's not 20,000 or whatever. And in general, there's less than 1,000, and even less than that, a few hundred really passionate live streamer folks. So how do you make an industry-wide decision based upon a couple hundred passionate immediate folks, right? So you have to kind of think about, how do we serve the whole industry? Who's going to watch this in other time zones? So it's hard. We think about it and we try to study and we try to make those compromises for maximum benefit for the sport, if that sort of answers it.
That definitely makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Did that help at all? You can refrain, or you can rephrase or redirect if you want.
No, I think you nailed it. That was just more my personal curiosity. So thank you for that. We still got a couple more questions here. Why don't we go on to one from our friend Byron Freso.
Hi, Rusty. This is Byron Freso. How are you? Recently, I have not seen you at many of the pickleball tournaments, videotaping all the matches, and I was wondering, what is your business reason? Secondly, are you going to be ever doing any live streaming?
And just to clarify, I think by live streaming, maybe more like what we're doing now, live streaming some maybe interviews or other pickleball related things other than actual matches.
Yes. Well, hello, Byron. He's always been very helpful and a supporter, and I don't know, there's just so many great people. So hello to you and Marcia. I really appreciate what you guys have done and how you've encouraged us. So it's a bit of a bummer, right? Because like I said, we were really gearing up to investing heavily at the US Open. So this question would have potentially not been as relevant because we would have had a whole team, the other week out at that tournament. But definitely we don't go to as many tournaments as other folks. So in terms of the business reason, as a number of tournaments have grown and expanded, some tournaments have chosen to court us or work with us more, if that makes sense. Sometimes it's just logistics in terms of which ones we can or can't go to. I'm still married with kids. I have teams. And so, my one daughter's in her second to last. So sometimes how often do I leave the home and go out? But a little bit, this isn't any kind of an insult at any level. We do sort of, US Open is a major, major tournament. And we have a great, great relationship with Chris and Terry. What they have done with that tournament, year number one was like 700 something. And, now you're at 2,300. And even their willingness to cancel the whole tournament and not step on the toes of other small tournaments. So committing to that tournament at that level then rules out other tournaments. So some of it's just logistics, some of it's timing, some of it's budget. And to answer this, so yes, we plan on doing more tournaments, but if there's a different thing, we have kind of, so yes, I guess we are planning on doing some more live type things that are not just live matches and looking at what that means. I'm trying to come up with some ideas that relate more to kind of community, not just necessarily pro tournaments, because I still feel that the heart and the masses, there's something really, really special about the local community in Georgia or the local community somewhere else. And so how do we continue to support and grow all of those people, even some of the ones that might never go to tournaments? So we're coming up with ideas. I don't know what that'll look like. But certainly it's fun to be on this show.
Well, cool. Well, we are happy to have you. And we do have
Thank you,
another
sir.
question here. Yeah, another video
All right.
question here. And this is from somebody who I'm a big fan of. I know Webby's a big fan of too. And that is
All
from
right, we'll see.
Irina Tereschenko.
Hey Eddie and Webby, hey everybody, Irina Tereschenko's here. Rusty, really missed hanging out with you at the US Open as well as your crew. 3 questions for you. What is your favorite part of the production process? Is there a part of the production process that you actually don't know how to do? And can you give us a blue steel, a famous look by Ben Stiller in Zoolander? Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I think I don't know if I joked about blue steel with her. So my hair's getting a little longer, right? But I regularly have spiky brown hair, and a number of people think I look like Ben Stiller. So will I do a blue steel? Let's see.
Yeah.
I guess I have to clench my jaw a little bit more.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, that is pretty good. That is good, yeah.
So There you go. Thank you. And so now Melissa's mom can realize that I'm willing to do blue steel. So in terms of the production process, my favorite part of the production process is probably just the community and the relationships and stuff. So I'm an extrovert. And so working with my team, even if I can do something by myself, if I'm editing, I'd be like, hey, sit here with me and, be together. So I enjoy, it's almost impossible to do what I do and not have a team. So I love the team. I think is there a part of the production process I don't know how to do? Well, I'd say I'm not that great compared to the guys that I work with, right? So there's a filmmaker who's better with the camera. There's somebody else who's better with editing. Technically, I don't know how to do 3D animations in Cinema 4D or in Maya. We don't do a lot of 3D. So I would say maybe that part, I could produce that part. I know enough to lead people, but hands-on, I've never technically done a wire rigging of a 3D model. I don't know if that makes.
No, that totally makes sense. Yeah, that's, I don't know, Webby, do you have any experience with that? Because I don't.
I don't, no.
Well, we have so our logo, ironically, our logo looks very 3D, the copper ring and the ball. But our logo, HR Suite, this logo here, this doesn't look 3D, but in our animation, that's actually a vector element. So he's very talented to be able to make something that looks 3D vector. But in the player profile, there's a player profile where we have a 3D pickleball. And I think like in our tournament matches, there's like 3 balls that are kind of like when we say who plays, and those are some 3D balls in there, but whatever. So, and we have a couple of 3D courts, some 3D courts here and there. But anyway, whatever.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Super interesting for people, I'm sure.
Yeah. We actually have a couple more messages. They're not video, but these were submitted by Dave Weinbach. And question number 1, what has life in LA been like for the last 3 months?
Well, weird and not that much different at the same time, if that makes sense. So, you know, we've had a virtual production company for years. So, post-production, managing things, some of the people that I have sort of loved working with and have all sort of moved a little bit over the years. So one of my primary guys lives in Oklahoma City, and we work virtually every day. We've been doing that for years. So that part hasn't changed much. Obviously, we're not shooting. Now, Los Angeles in particular, you know, you have New York, but like I said, things are much more strict here. So driving on the freeways has been a joy. I've never in 27 some years seen the freeways so open. So that's been different. And then, you know, just Los Angeles County, I live in Glendale, which is a part of LA, is just so populated, right? You know, we have more in our small our area here than most countries. So it's kind of crazy to see it kind of ghost townish a little bit. My daughter came home from college and my other daughter in high school. So having the family at home, but that's been kind of okay because they're old enough, right? So a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old, I don't have to babysit like a 3-year-old, you know. So some of these people who've had to have their kids at home, that's crazy. But the vibe in LA, Southern Californians can get a bit crotchety. So people might have heard that they started to open up a few weeks ago, and then all of a sudden everybody swarmed to the beaches, and the governor had to say, wait, you know, too many, too fast. So that's why we've kind of encouraged pickleball people, when it starts to come back, it's like, just listen to your city. If you go too fast, they're going to shut you down. So just this week, just not actually tomorrow, some of the local courts where I am are first time opening up. So Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena have just opened up limited singles play with restrictions. Whereas I know Naples, Florida is totally open almost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about where you're in Naples, right? So East Naples Park, you can go play doubles if you want, right?
Yeah, we can play doubles there. Community courts are open. Things are definitely starting to open up. They still want you to practice some different
social distancing,
practices, social distancing, and things like that. And they really only want you to play with the people you show up with. But
correct, right?
But mostly, yeah, it's much more open than what I hear the rest of the world, like where Webby's at in Michigan.
Yeah,
very different story up there.
Yeah.
Do you guys have doubles play yet, or just singles in Michigan?
It's currently just singles. Businesses are finally starting to open a little more with pretty strict social distancing guidelines. And then just today we were told that we can start doing stuff in groups of 10 or less. But you do, like those 10 people still need to make sure you practice social distancing. I do know a lot of people are starting to play doubles play around here. I've only done singles so far myself, but I can't wait to get back into doubles play. Like, you have no idea how much it's killing me right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole nother conversation about rec play coming back, and then tournament play. Tournament play can't come back as fast as rec play just because the numbers are bigger and there's more travel. So it'll be really interesting, just like basketball and baseball and every other professional sports, having to figure out, what do you do? You know, when the biggest tournament in the world used to be 700 several years ago, you had a ton of tournaments that had 70 people in them, right? You know, local or 100-person tournament, but a 100-person tournament is way, way smaller than a lot of the tournaments that are happening now. So anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
We have one more kind of walk-on question that actually happened live here that happens to be from a pro, so I figured it fits.
There you go.
This is from Stephanie Lane, and Stephanie says, Rusty, do you sleep well the night before a big event, or are you restless thinking about all the details and preparing yourself for all the things that could go wrong? Great job as always, buddy.
Hi, Stephanie, one of my favorite people in pickleball. I have a lot of favorite people, but thank you, Stephanie, for being such a phenomenal ambassador of good sportsmanship and everything. I typically sleep less. So usually because I have extremely long days, and then I get to a point where I'm so tired that I can conk out. But I do have the proclivity sometimes right before to kind of like wake up earlier, kind of, so I lose a little sleep early in the morning. I'm worried about an alarm not going off. But typically I can conk out, but maybe that's because I'm falling asleep at 2:30 or 3:30. And so sleep well, I guess, is not like I do when I'm at home in my bed with my family, but insomnia is not so much of an issue. But I definitely, I do have my RPMs get going a little higher, and there's some anxiety, and you want you guys get it, especially if you're going live. But even if you're not going live, I need to maximize what we're doing. I don't have a $1 million budget, so I need to make sure every day is a valuable day, because I'm going to pay my team. I'm going to pay my team no matter what. So I want to make sure it's worthwhile for them, so I can hire them again, and it's worthwhile for me and whatever. But anyway. And the tournaments, and then the audience. You got to keep everybody happy, man.
It's a tough balancing act, and I always say I keep my brain on a Rolodex. I feel like when we're preparing, it's like you're just constantly going through everything over and over again, and it's hard to relax.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great segment of Pros Asking Pros questions. But that was the last question.
Super, yeah, robust.
Yeah. Webby, I'm going to kick it back on over to you.
All right. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Those were some awesome questions. And we actually did just get another message on here on social media. It's a little bit on the controversial side, and it's it's really no surprise because this comes from one of our arch nemesis from the No Smoke Pickleball show. And this is from Lauren McLaughlin, and it is a giant question that you're probably not going to be able to see the whole thing of, but I'll do my best to read it all.
All right.
And you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier before, but Lauren says, you mentioned trying to grow the audience of passionate live stream watchers. In that spirit, what is the thinking behind, at the two biggest tournaments, the U.S. Open and Nationals, limiting streaming to one main court and and missing the massive amount of other games being played? By not allowing others to live stream, the company still gets their exclusive rights to the main court, but seems to limit the growth of people being able to watch. By doing that, by the time it gets down to the medal rounds, it's all on the main court anyways, so it doesn't seem like others are taking away anything from the main court views. So that's the whole question. Hopefully you got all that. And it's something, we've gotten that quite a bit too. Like we hear that all the time, like, oh man, why can't we live stream? Like, I know they've got the rights to the main court, but why can't we live stream on the other courts and stuff like that? So I think that is something that's a concern to a lot of people, and I was just curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, I think there's no immediate easy answer, and part of it is the industry still sort of growing and figuring out the industry's business model. It's like when Indian Wells sort of came along, and again, sponsorships of tournaments. I think it was like $100 for a 6-foot table for 5 days, and now it's like, oh, there's a $20,000 sponsorship, right? So there's a lot of different things. Each one will have a pro and con to it. So I guess as I answer this question, hopefully it'd be more of a conversation rather than here's the one thing. A couple of things I think everybody thinks about. You have to think about one, on a practical level, if somebody's going to come to an event and use that event and share some stuff, the question is, are they a recreational person or are they a business? Use CrossFit as an example, right? So CrossFit games or other events, they'll say, well, Betsy can live stream on her personal Facebook page, but no commercial things. So if the US Open and Indian Wells are spending tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to put on this event, Joe Schmo comes up, and it's the same thing with photography. Someone's like, hey, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures here and I'm going to make a bunch of money, but am I paying a fee am I giving proceeds? Like, I can't open up a restaurant and not pay taxes to the city, right? Or something. I have to have my space. So to have more and more people, one, I think is a business thing. Are other people making money off of that tournament? And then not necessarily even promoting the people that are part of it, right? So one part, I think that's not an easy answer. I think one thing that people consider is I talked about sort of appetite and draw, like the Olympics. The Olympics doesn't necessarily cover everything, and they have the money to cover more things. And so if you put everything out there for everybody all the time, right? And someone's invested that sort of money, does that then water down other things? Some people would say no. There's a limitless appetite. There's no such thing as too much live streaming, but I think there is a consideration that there is. It's like if you love In-N-Out hamburgers, California, people love In-N-Out. If you love In-N-Out hamburgers, but you have 5,000 In-N-Out hamburgers, that's going to decrease your appetite at some level. So if someone wants to say, I want to make sure, I want to draw the suspense, and I want to say, hey, you can't see everything because then people will be all the more hungry for the other thing. Someone says that's stupid. Someone else says that makes sense. If you look at best practices from other sports industries, most other sports industries have limitations in terms of how much coverage. That's, again, a combination of what they invest in. Are other people leveraging that and not giving them kudos? Definitely, I think there's an element to where the future has to be some sort of a hybrid. The technology offers up opportunities for more people to see things. But a lot of these organizations, it can't totally be free all the time, limitless with no restrictions, right? So how does that then work out? And then certainly, for example, if somebody is passionate, they watch one, but then they don't watch the other. So logistically, you have to figure out, okay, also there comes a legal issue, right? So a lot of people who are doing things like we have $2 million of liability insurance. If somebody comes out and does something on my facility and something goes wrong, who's going to be liable for that? Are every one of those live streamers businesses that have all the legal things in place? People are like, oh, it'll never happen. But companies certainly consider what are the legal ramifications of other businesses doing things on their site. I'm sure that's somewhere. There's lots of things that go into it. I don't know if that helps. There's no easy yes or no. Every one of these has a pro and a con, and someone could argue how it's different. But a lot of it drafts what are other sports that are making a hell of a lot more money than any of us doing. And so you could say, well, if they figured out how to turn this into a $200 or $1 billion industry, how does that look for pickleball? But it's learning. It's a learning process.
Oh, for sure. And I agree. It's like, it's one of those things. It's such a tough thing to give a straight answer on, because I can see both sides. I can see why people will get upset. Like, oh, like this court's not even being live streamed right now. Why can't I record it? But for all the reasons that you said, like, I can see this. Like, you have very valid points. And I think it's just, like you said, going to be a learning process. Things will change as we go. But yeah, it's a tough one. And I do think that was a great question, Lauren. Yeah. Something that I think probably could use some improvement.
Lauren's out there. She's creating content. I think the question I would ask everybody who wants to be a content creator is, what's the scenario that you think works that is as beneficial to the venue and the other partners as it is to yourself? So if someone's saying, I'm going to do X, how is that really going to help that person? Is it going to help them equal to me or less than me? And I think the other content creators, including myself, have to figure out, when I work with a tournament, how do I then bring the greatest value to that event? And I said earlier in our broadcast, we're looking at other collaborations and ways that things like that can happen. But I don't think Lauren is in this. I know Lauren's working strategically with the APP, PPA, APP. Anyway, yes.
One of those.
I'm mixing up my chores. Yes. I need to get more sleep. So, but there are some people out there, and again, I'm not saying Lauren would be in this category, but there are some people out there that are just like, if you say, we should have everything for free, unlimited to everybody all the time. And so then I'd say, well, if every court has streaming and every court is free and there's no restrictions, no limitations anywhere, how does that work out from an accountability and a business standpoint? And so if I heard a good solution to that, then I think, events and tournaments and broadcasters and venues and even local media, you have to figure it out. So I guess that's the last one. If everything's for free everywhere from all these other things, then how do you ever get a bigger media entity interested in it? You know what I mean? So that's another level, because the bigger people, the bigger they get, the more they want to control. The ESPNs and everybody else's of the world, they want to have more and more and more control. So one part of pickleball community says, hey, let's get this on national TV. And then another part of the community says, hey, fewer restrictions. Let's put more stuff out there. And those are sort of different,
Yeah, that's a tough call for sure. And yeah, definitely something I think we'll continue to learn and grow from as we go. But that was a great question,
sure.
Lauren. Thanks for that.
Thank you. And nice cat, by the way. Her little cat photo there.
We have another question here on social media. This comes from Joe Valenti, and he says, Rusty is a legend, a genuine ambassador of the sport. What does he think of, man, the thing just went off my screen for a second here.
Got it.
Okay.
Leagues competing with each other.
Yeah, what does he think of the upcoming tours competing with each other?
Yeah, so I was actually just talking to somebody about this yesterday. We get calls all the time from new businesses coming in, so I try to help. So this guy wants to start a paddle manufacturer. This person wants to start another media company, and so we try to be a resource and we have conversations. And I was sharing how I'm a little bit bummed out how the industry is becoming more divisive than how it used to be. And so I think there's a pro and a con to the answer. I think there's division, unfortunately, with some of the governing bodies. There's division. You can never have total, complete unanimity. There's no scenario in the history of mankind. It's like, Jesus, the Messiah, not everybody liked him. Some wanted to kill him. Like there's never been a single person or a single country that everybody liked all the time. So that's not what I'm saying. However, right now in pickleball, there's a little bit more, this is fighting for that. So there's a lot of wild, wild west happening. I think the industry's still young, and which tour is going to win out, which international governing body is going to win out, which training organization is going to be the lead training organization. And ultimately, I think I wish that some of these organizations, even Hall of Fame, right? There's division in a Hall of Fame thing happening. So that makes me sad. And I wish that there could be more collaboration. At the end of the day, we live in a world where there's free market and capitalism. So things will win out. Things will rise above. At some point, Pickleball Channel might not exist either. I'd be the first person to say, you know what, we're not the best. We need to get out of the way. We're holding things back. But it's hard for people to say, hey, I want to share versus I want to conquer. So I think it's exciting that the pro market, for lack of a better term, is growing. I think the growth is very fast. So I have some concern. It's like a tree that grows really, really quick and that's thin. I mean, literally in the last few years, the numbers of tournaments, the numbers of growth, and then the money. But if you think of the pool of pros, it's still pretty darn small. We don't have 1,000 super high-end pros, right? Like other sports have a lot of really high top tier. And if that makes sense, I think now some people are going to say, oh, Rusty's an elitist, he's a snob. But the pro brackets, we don't have the 5,000 person bracket at all, right? If I'm making sense. So I think to answer Joe's question, it's exciting because it symbolizes how pickleball is growing. And I'm super jazzed about the growth and the energy of pickleball. But I hope that some of the people in the organizations might bring some more collaboration and leveraging of resources rather than competing resources.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So we had two kind of deep questions there. Let me get to one. Yeah. Let me lighten things up here with a question here from Steve Kennedy. And he says, how does Rusty always keep his hair so perfect?
I don't really. I guess a little bit of a hair product. It's getting long. I was blessed with a decent amount of hair. I haven't lost it yet. My brother's hair's not as thick. If you're watching, Steve, sorry. I was at a tournament in Huntsman where someone's wife was talking all about my hair because her husband, who I think has less hair, was all talking about my hair. I had no idea, Steve, that my hair was a topic of conversation. Although I do typically cut it before I go to a big tournament. Now I'm messing up my hair. I do cut it before I go to a tournament, so I have a similar look over and over again. And so I guess it's short enough that when I cut it short, I throw a little bit of gunk in the front, and it sort of stays there, I guess. But yes, that is definitely a lighter. Thank you, Steve, for bringing some levity back to the show.
Right. Nice. Yeah, thank you, Steve. So, man, this I feel like we could talk for hours about more pickleball stuff. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of the questions I wanted to ask, but we've had so many great questions from the pros, so many great questions from people tuning in, and I've got to tell you, we've had a lot of live interaction tonight, a lot more than we've had the last few episodes. So I feel like that's something you should definitely be proud of. Like, people are definitely interested to see what you have to say here, and this has been awesome. I do have a couple more questions for you before we part ways, though.
Okay.
As fellow video content creators, Eddie and I know full well how time consuming it is to try and create these high quality videos. So I'm curious. I know you said you haven't played any tournaments, but how much time do you actually get to spend pickleball these days? Do you get on the courts too much these days, or are you pretty busy doing the video stuff?
Well, part of it is where I live and my age and the demographic and the timing, right? So where I live, there's far fewer. I mean, Simi Valley is the closest multiple court type place. And in Los Angeles, on a good day without traffic, it can be 30 minutes, right? With traffic, it could be an hour and a half. In Glendale, just, not that far away, but a lot of times in Glendale, where I live in Glendale, they'll start playing at 9:30. And I'm, that's kind of like prime work time. So there's not a group that goes out at, 7 a.m. so I can bang out a bit. So the short answer is no, I don't get to play as much as I like. And what happened typically, I'll go for a drought, I'll work, and then I'm just like, screw it. And I'll say, I'm going to go out and play for an hour. And then, I'll be calling the office and I'll be texting my people to be like, okay, so it's 12:30 and Rusty's still playing. What happened to that quick pickleball thing? Because I just won't be able to stop. So I typically will go in, I'll binge pickleball for a while. And, I'll play like a couple days in a row for 5 hours. And then I'll be like, crap, I got to get back to work. So it'd be nice to get to a point where there's more places to play with more time. So there's not as many evening play, but Burbank and some places are starting to do nights. And so you can sort of sneak out for a little bit and get some stuff in the evening. So some of it's a factor of just where I live and what play there is. Pasadena, Burbank, and Glendale have some really growing communities, which is cool. And of course, right now, there's just limitations from Corona. But assuming Corona wasn't there, I've fallen in love with the sport. I really enjoy playing it. I enjoy the people. I joke about being a -2. I don't know what rating I am, but I'm a 5.0 in my brain because I've made all these videos and I've right. studied the game. I've asked lots of questions, which is kind of ironic. I was going to joke with Riff and some of the people what there's a can you be a good coach and not be a good player is the question of the day. Can you study enough? Like, I can't dunk a basketball, but I'm an awesome coach. Like, what if I can't dink? If I can't do so many drop shots in a row, could I still technically be a good teacher? I don't know. But anywho, so I'm okay, but I like to have fun in general. I never really try to win. I enjoy the community so much. So if I start to win, I usually start to not win, because then I'm this a-hole Rusty from Pickleball Channel who beat you, right? So if I play in a tournament, I have to throw all the matches. Otherwise, I'm a bully. I'm a public face, that mean guy.
Right. But when you were talking about how it depends, because of where you live, it kind of dictates on how much you can play. I can definitely relate to that, because Eddie, he's very fortunate to live down in Naples. He can play pretty much whenever he wants. I'm in Michigan.
Not even just yeah. There you go. Brush your shoulder, man. I mean, you in a 15-mile circle. I don't know how many courts you'd probably have, Eddie. Just crazy, right? I mean, because even
I can throw a football and hit 20.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I'm here in Southeast Michigan, and I'm lucky. We get maybe maybe 4 or 5 months tops of the year that is optimal for outdoor play. The rest of the year, you have to focus on indoor gymnasium play. If you're lucky, you might be able to find like a private indoor tennis court place and play there. But for the most part, like there's only a few really good months of outdoor play where I'm at, and it never fails that the days that I'm free to play, the weather is horrible. It's raining. It's windy. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, Southern California, we don't have the weather thing so much, but I grew up in the Northeast and lived in the Midwest, so I totally feel your pain in terms of temperature. Although some of that indoor play, I don't know if you've ever put knee pads on. I know like Joe Valenti, the guys up in the Northeast, there's some pretty aggressive indoor court play, where you can slide around and you can dive for balls. You can't really dive for a ball on the cement, but when you're on that indoor basketball court, you can get some balls that you'd never be able to get anywhere else.
Oh yeah, I always wear knee wraps because I've got knee issues, so my knees are always covered. So when it's indoor gymnasium play, like I make some amazing saves. Like I'm sliding in and making some great saves, and then usually like the first few times I play outdoors, I gotta try to stop myself from sliding because there's been a couple times where I went for the knee slide on an outdoor court and it just totally ripped up my knee pads, scraped up my knee. So I got to remember like not to do that in outdoor play.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
So have there been any specific tournaments that you've covered throughout the years of Pickleball Channel that have really kind of like stood out to you as the most memorable or historic moments so far?
Well, tournaments or memorable. Well, certainly for me, last year when we got the award, when Kristen Terry gave us that award, it was unexpected. And my wife had sort of kind of lied to me about why she came out. She hadn't come out. And so in terms of just personally, that recognition and award from them, and an opportunity for me to tell thousands of people how I appreciated them and actually tell the world because it was live. So I think even right now, just thank you so much to everybody who's sort of encouraged us and watched what we do and is appreciative. And even thanks for the people who watch and hate it, because I guess, that's a part of it as well. But in terms of like moments, I think when I came to year in the shade structure, what I have affectionately called the open air arena. So the venue in Arizona was amazing, but that first time the Zing Zang Championship Court had that open air arena and that structure, and there was big enough stands, they were far enough. Pickleball hadn't had any kind of an arena amphitheater type experience of that size. So that was truly significant, I think, and it opened up the door for people saying like, oh wait, you always had people crowding around when the matches got big, whether you were in Casa Grande or whether you're in Little Valley, wherever you were. But when you go from 1 bleacher to 2 bleachers to 3 bleachers, and then when it gets bigger, and then now you have lights, and then you have, this thing, it feels different. It's like we were talking about the WrestleMania. When you walk into an amphitheater and there's people on all 4 sides, it's different. There's something special about it. And now, that kind of carries over at Indian Wells. Indian Wells is able to have multiple sides with people all around a court. So I think creating those kinds of venues for the sport to be played is definitely significant. So from an experiential standpoint, I think then just, I would say, that's probably a unique thing, if that makes sense. Definitely, I've seen the play change. I mean, I think Daniel Moore. So looking at how singles has evolved, that's interesting. But that's not like one tournament or one event. But it's been exciting to see how the game has changed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I agree. So I know with Eddie and I, when we do the videos, sometimes there's a few projects that we work on that are just like so much fun to work on. Like for example, we did a Slick Tricks video that was super, super fun. We did the bad dink reading videos recently. They're just super fun. Are there any videos that stand out to you from the Pickleball Channel that were just super fun to work on, like more so than any of the others? Does anything stand out in regards to that?
Well, it's a good question because it reminds me to have more fun. And I think this goes to the joke that Melissa said, is like, why so serious? How come you look so grumpy? And I think I tend to be a perfectionist, and I tend to be like, okay, we got to do this. And even my team, I'm like, can we get another shot? Can we get another angle? So when I'm shooting, I typically am not as goofy. I think the first time I was able to kind of play a little bit was with, thank you, Bob Youngren, Jennifer's dad. I was making a video. It was the first time I remember letting down as I was on camera shooting, because Bob is just such a great guy. And at the end of my videos, I always sort of say, hey, we really hope this has been helpful. Thank you, so-and-so. Thank you, so-and-so. And I said to Bob, hey, Bob, thanks for not screwing it up. And he was secure enough as a person, right? He was confident enough as who he was that he let me tease him, and he joked and he laughed. And then even people commented online. And then subsequent to that, I think Jennifer and Alex have always been playful. So in one particular shoot, when we worked on the most complete non-volley zone video ever, we dropped a banana and stupid stuff like that into the frame to simulate if it goes into the kitchen. Now, of course, why the hell would somebody have, I think we dropped their keys and a hat. We might have even dropped a banana. So that was kind of fun to be able to let down a little bit. But unfortunately, sometimes I think I'm a little bit more serious than I maybe even need to be when I make the video. So you'll remind me, I got to do a silly video. Maybe I should do a music video with you. I'll have you as a special guest, and then I could be silly.
I love it. I love that idea. Eddie and Webby collaborate with Pickleball Channel and Rusty here. I think that would be perfect. I think that's got to happen at some point for sure. Nice. Oh man, Rusty, this has been such an awesome night. It was definitely we were very fortunate to have you here tonight. I loved every second of it. Before we say goodbye, though, is there anything that you want to say to everybody listening? We always like to give our guests the opportunity to say pretty much anything they want to. Whether it be how to follow you or what's going on with the Pickleball Channel, or just pretty much whatever's on your mind, the microphone is yours.
Oh yeah, well thanks. Well, in terms of the promotion thing, I guess most people sort of know, but I mean, if you choose to subscribe, that does help. Not so much to grow our channel. I mean, we still get hundreds of thousands and millions of views, and that's great and exciting. But if you do actually get one of our emails or you do subscribe, then that gives us extra data that helps us to understand you. So by choosing to sign up for free and do the email or whatever, then I can be like, hey, nobody opened this. Everybody sucked. And so I can start to try to create content that's more interesting to you. So whatever. So that's for whatever. Pickleballchannel.com, there's a free subscribe, or you go to YouTube, you go anywhere and you can follow and like and follow. But I guess in terms of what I would just say, be kind, do good, right? We're in coronavirus. I think I said thank you already. So thank you, pickleball fans. Thank you, pickleball community. We could not have been here without the people who volunteered and embraced us when nobody knew who the heck we were. And we were trying to be like, look, I worked in Hollywood. It'll be professional, I promise. And someone decided to let us. So, but then all the other people, the pros, the players, the fans who support us, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. My encouragement as we finish coronavirus, and I think my encouragement in general, even though Melissa's mom thought I was grumpy and mean, I'd say, let's always try to put other people first, the pros and the coaches and everybody. I'm so excited that we're growing the industry. I'm so excited that tournaments are growing, but let's just all try to figure out how we can help the next person. If we can figure out how to help that next person and help them because I want them to become better, because I want more people to live longer lives. We did a CPR video, whatever. And I'd say, let's try to keep helping people. Let's try to keep pickleball a great community, not so much a great business. It'll be a great business as long as it's a great community, if that makes sense. Let's let the industry grow out of kindness and sharing and collectivity and relationships. And it's been an honor to serve you. And hopefully you guys know we're trying to serve you. I mean, I'm trying to stay in business, but at the end of the day, if I ever stop helping and making a difference in the lives of pickleball players, then I need to stop what I'm doing. So thank you for letting me come into your homes. Thank you, Eddie and Webby. Thanks for, I guess, watching some of my junk in the early days, Webby. And we're just going to keep trying to, do whatever we can, even if it's a teeny tiny bit, to move that needle positively for pickleball, but the world as well. So I know that's deep again. Maybe I jump back to my hair and finish that way. So I will cut my hair again, I promise.
I was going to say maybe end with a blue steel, like Irina wanted you to do earlier.
There you go.
Nice. Love it.
My eyes are open too big. I think he glints, doesn't he? That's my
maybe a little
my
more of a
grumpy face.
like a little more of a pucker. I think like a little duck face kind of look. I think you get. There we go. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
All right.
Oh man, this is awesome. Thank you.
Too many of them.
Thank you very much, Rusty.
kids-
This
kids will
has been
essentially make
such a
fun of me.
treat. Nice. But yeah, Rusty, this has been such a treat for us. You have no idea how much it means for us, for you to join us tonight. This has been awesome. Cannot thank you enough. And yeah, I hope you have a great night. And thank you for everything you've done for the sport of pickleball.
Well, man, yeah, both of you guys, thank you very much for having me, and kudos to you. I mean, I talked about the good microphone and the good stuff and some of the live streaming, and yeah, we should definitely talk more about collaborating and stuff. I think because, we can't be everywhere all the time, and maybe there's something that, I appreciate your guys' commitment to keep plugging forward. And even though, sometimes it's my life too. Sometimes the numbers aren't always there. And then you're like, let's do another one. And I know you got the craft beer, so that helps a little bit. But I appreciate your persistence so far, and thanks for having me. And look forward to kind of keep talking. It's a pleasure to get to know you personally. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rusty.
All right.
Thank you, Eddie Webby. Are we officially leaving?
You are officially dismissed, sir.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, man. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. This was such a fun and insightful night. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I mean, Rusty's a very inspiring guy, and one of the things is, I don't know about you, Webby, but every time that I prepare for a live stream for a tournament, I'll watch a lot of his stuff and try and figure out, well, how can I do that? Well, how can I implement this? And it's like it's almost like the more experience I get with playing pickleball, the more that I can watch a Ben and Simone match and actually be able to kind of glean a little bit of insight into how they play and how they can apply it to my game. And I feel like the same thing goes with watching Rusty's work and a lot of the stuff he does with the Pickleball Channel. I feel like the more you and I get experience with this, the more we can glean a little bit of, oh, I understand why he did that now, or oh, this makes sense. And every time I do that, it gives me that much more kind of respect and appreciation for a lot of the work that goes into all the stuff that they do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's mind-blowing the amount of work that goes into these video productions. And when you look at the stuff that they've done on the Pickleball Channel, I mean, it is such top-notch broadcast quality stuff. It's, like until you've actually done video production work, I feel like people don't truly understand how much work goes into doing that kind of thing, and to do it at that high of a level. I mean, I think it was last year at the Las Vegas tournament, he kind of gave a behind-the-scenes look, and it showed like this whole production truck that they took to do that. It's just, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I know some people think, oh, you can just point a cell phone at it and live stream. Yeah, you could do that. You can get a live stream, but you can't get the score on the screen. You can't plug in microphones to do commentary. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it that people don't realize. And it's just, if it wasn't for people like Rusty, pickleball absolutely would not be where it is today as far as getting the recognition that it has.
Yeah, I agree. And, I always try and draw parallels between the craft beer industry and pickleball, right? Because craft beer, when I got into it, only represented about 4% of the entire beer market. And now I think it's upwards of maybe 9%. I haven't checked the numbers lately. But it grew to that level because of the community that kind of revolved around craft beer. It was a very collaborative community, but at the same time, it also wasn't a commune. We weren't all living on a commune and just kind of like, helping each other and acting in that capacity. We do at some point have to treat this like a business, and finding that balance in that sweet spot, I think, is what's going to help grow pickleball to the next level. Understanding that there is a balance there. I love the fact that people can throw a Mevo up and throw a cell phone up and do a good live stream of a match to be able to do it. But I really appreciate when it's brought to that next level of having high quality production, scoreboards, commentary, commercials, inviting people into the experience. And I think that the more that all of us grow, the more that we're challenging each other, the more that we're kind of encouraging each other to grow, it's just going to lead to pickleball getting to the point where we all want it to be. And we're all here because it's passionate. Eventually, there's going to be people coming in, and maybe it's already happened, but they're going to be coming in because of money. And not to say that money isn't a bad thing, but when it's your primary motivator, it takes away from the sport. And so I feel like everything he said tonight was it was all about finding that sweet spot to where we all kind of grow together, which I appreciated.
Yep, exactly. And I love the fact that he wasn't afraid to ask the hard-hitting questions, like that one from Lauren. That's I mean, that's a tough one. Like he said, it's very hard to give like a flat answer because there's so many variables, there's so many ways to look at it and stuff like that. So, and that's something that's probably still going to be a debate for a while. I think I saw some comments coming in that like didn't totally agree with what he said, but I mean, what he said did make sense. I mean, coming from a business perspective, I mean, you got to look at it from a business perspective sometimes. And it's something that it'll grow as pickleball grows and different tough decisions need to be made and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. I love the fact that he was willing to answer stuff like that.
Yeah, tonight was a unique podcast, right? We've basically had pretty much all pro players on for our past, I don't even know how many in a row. So to get somebody who's kind of on the media side of things, I think is really cool. Very, very unique perspective. And I hope that you guys out there all appreciated it.
Yeah, I hope you guys liked it as much as I did, because I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. I'm looking forward to watching it back, actually, because I mean, we covered so many things tonight that I definitely can't wait to listen to them back, especially towards the end. I drank a couple of these. These are not weak beers, so some of it might be new to me when I listen back to it.
It's like a whole brand new podcast all over again, right?
Right?
Man, we covered so much tonight. Is there anything else that we want to cover before we sign off here, Webby?
Oh man, the only thing that I wanted to bring up before we log off today is, did you see that Ellen DeGeneres is addicted to pickleball now?
I saw that, but I saw people posting about it, but I didn't actually watch the clip. Can you kind of break the clip down for me?
Yeah, so it was on her show. She has been doing, like most other talk shows, she's been doing her show from her house. And I think it was about 2, maybe 3 days ago, she was talking about how she was sore because she's been playing a lot of pickleball and she's totally obsessed and totally addicted to it. And I absolutely love that fact, because I feel like because she talked about it, so many more people are probably Google searching, watching YouTube videos and wondering what the heck is this pickleball thing she's talking about. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of new players getting into the sport. And I love that fact. I know last year, the Kardashians, on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, played pickleball. A lot of people on the pickleball forum bashed that fact. But to me, that's a very positive thing. The more people and the more exposure we get, then the more momentum pickleball will gain. And that's only a positive thing, because that's going to cause more courts to get built. It's going to cause more coverage to happen, and eventually the TV coverage that a lot of people are craving. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Andrea Jones said, would love to see you interview Ellen DeGeneres, who said yesterday she plays pickleball. So man. Ellen, I guarantee you're watching right now, because you are hooked. Yep. And so, you're one of the 40 or so people that are watching live right now. Go ahead and reach out to us. We'll be glad to get you on the show, talk about pickleball with you, maybe talk about some other things as well. So, come on on. And definitely we want to have you on.
Yeah. Ellen DeGeneres, just have your people contact our people, and we will definitely consider having you on our show sometime.
That's right. Well, another great episode of the Eddie and Webby podcast. Anything else you want to cover, Webby?
No, I think that's it. I think that's a wrap.
Well, this has been a great time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was episode number 66, which means there are 66 of you out there still listening or watching right now. And guess what, Webby?
What?
We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for that. And on that note, I'm Eddie.
And until next time, this is Webby, not Eddie, signing off.
See ya.